Now, if you've ever heard the phrase, our diversity is our strength, you too have been lied to. Simple as that. Or at least the version of that we've gotten in real life, right? We have been told that a diversity in culture or multiculturalism is going to be our saving grace as a civilization. More specifically, the West, right? Because Lord knows what Western civilization needed was for everybody else who wants to destroy Western civilization to join them in essentially that destruction. Now, there is a difference, and I must sort of make this delineation of multi-ethnicism, I guess, what is it? Diversity in ethnicity, multi-racialism, right? If you're still kind of pointed towards superficiality of skin color or whatever it may be, and multicultural. Now, Western civilization is culture, right? It is belief systems, it is behaviors, it is customs and norms. Race should have little to nothing to do with that, right? I may be black on the outside, but he sure is white on the inside, ain't he? Depends on who you're talking to, right? I may be black on the outside, but on the inside, just like you, I'm flesh and bone. I'm blood, red, purple, maroon, magenta. Damn it. We all have the same flesh, bone, blood, all of us. Now, what separates us is our belief system, our ideology, again, our customs, our norms, and our behaviors. And as far as I'm concerned, I believe that Western civilization has been the salvation of human beings at the social level because it is a carrier of Judeo-Christian values. It is built upon that foundation and that basis, right? That is why it is our saving grace as a culture. I'm not saying it saved us, right? This human invention necessarily, but its foundation and its basis. There are other cultures that are perfectly fine. They're okay, but, they don't mesh. And then there are others who are not okay and not fine and definitely don't mesh. And the reason I say not okay is because they have an anti-human message connected to them. This is why I have such a passionate adversity to fundamentalist Islam, not Muslims, but Islam. The ideology that believes more in death than it does life. The one that is willing to cause the most amount of human damage and harm in order to get its own, its own ideology across, to force its ideology onto others. See, Western civilization, though it hasn't been perfect in this, has been striving towards freedom, whereas Sharia law strives towards control. That's different. We can't compare the two. Shout out to Charlie Kirk for his most recent viral X post of Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. Many cultures are not compatible. Many are not. Socialist cultures, communist cultures are not compatible with Western civilization and the freedoms that we enjoy in Western society. The little mustache man, as much as he's praised by the white supremacists and the neo-schmazis, it's not compatible with Western civilization. That's why there has always been this sort of Cold War with America or the United States. Because, America can be continent, right? The United States of America and what was the Soviet Union, now Russia, etc., or that region of the world. We just can't mix. We can't mesh. We can't mesh with what's going on in North Korea. And so we found ourselves in a place where we are being forced to take these different ideologies, to take these different worldviews, and to mix them all together. So how do you mix somebody who wants your freedom with somebody who wants to destroy you? Like, I want your freedom, but you want to destroy me. Or you want my freedom, but I want to destroy you. Does that work? Time on the clock. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah. Absolutely the hell not. Option A to D. Absolutely the hell not. It does not work. And so, earlier I came across a clip, and I just want to use this as reference. We're not about to get into this whole 18 minutes, but, the OG, Jordan Peterson. Shout out to Jordan Peterson. I hope he's doing okay. I heard he's been going through some health things recently as well. So, keep that man right there in your prayers and your well wishes. But I wanted to get into this because, it delves into this conversation, and I feel, one is good, but two is oftentimes better than one. So let's get into it.
Let's go back to the question you asked about political orientation and what the values are. And I've done a lot of thinking about this long before I went to Panama to see this. And I've come to the conclusion that we've been sold a bill of goods. And the bill of goods was called multiculturalism. And the problem with multiculturalism is that it sounds like something that those of us who like to interact with people from many different cultures should appreciate. But it's in fact the opposite of the value that we actually hold. The value that we actually hold, I would call Western cosmopolitanism.
Yeah,
Western
that's very
cosmopolitanism. It's the opposite, right? Multiculturalism is the idea that people should not join our societies, but they should maintain their own traditions in an isolated pocket, and that we should effectively reject the idea of becoming one people in the West.
It's just a reduplication of the situation that obtains in the world.
And I want to give a little context into Brett Wiseman. So this man right here was actually a professor at one of, I believe, the most liberal colleges in America. I think it was called Green Valley, or what was it? Evergreen College, something of that nature. I watched a little snippet of something back in the day about it. Might have even done just one brief video. Sometimes you can't get into everything in depth, but you can know enough to just, equip yourself in that moment. So he came from this university where essentially he was now targeted by the student body as well as faculty because he was not willing to completely bow, to this woke ideology. So these protests would be taking place on campus, protesting against certain curriculum and, we need to change this and this, everything's racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever, so long as it's against white people. That whole thing happens and he finds himself in a catch-22 because I think at the time he might have, been considered as an old school liberal, right? Maybe somewhere in between. And all of a sudden he's being viewed as, far right because he just believes in regular stuff. Like there's girls and there's boys and, that's all there is. The same Jordan Peterson type of story arc, right? Just without the mass amount of controversy and push into the mainstream. But the reason I bring that context up is to say that, this is not just a guy who has had it out for leftist ideology or, keep America white. Like, he's not that guy. Even if you want him to be that guy, he's not that guy. Just like I'm not that guy, right? I don't believe it actually had to do with race. Unfortunately, race can oftentimes be a carrier of culture when, people are so fixated on the groupthink. If you can't think independently, which is something that I do my best to advocate for, is like, think outside of your group dynamic. Think outside of your racial dynamic. Think outside of them versus us in skin color or ethnicity or background, but instead in ideology, in how we view the world and how we move through the world. If we can go through life in that way, then we can start to recognize there's people who look just like me who do not have my best intentions at heart. And there are people who look nothing like me who do. And then, of course, vice versa, which is relatively obvious. So, again, I know JP's going to get into it. And so let's hope we can decode some of this.
World at large, with no appreciation for the fact that if you bring people together and reduplicate the situation of the world at large with no uniting meta-narrative, let's say, you also bring in all of the conflict. Like, obviously, because the delusion seems to be that now just because they're And I think maybe it's fueled by this an underlying materialism. So maybe the notion is, if you bring diverse people from all over the world, regardless of their culture, and you provide them with sufficient economic opportunity, given that conflict is driven fundamentally by economic need, let's say, or economic differences, that will just vanish somehow magically. Now, I'm not saying anyone necessarily thought this through, but my sense is that the systems of ideas that are motivating these mass occurrences, they have their own internal spirit and forward-moving impetus, and they can be full of internal conflict, and no one really sorts that out. But that's what it seems to be. It's got to be something like, well, we bring everyone together like they are where they already are, but now because they're rich, it's going to work out fine. And there isn't any universal system of values that needs to be preferred other than the plenitude of economic opportunity.
So there's the point right there. There it is. Oftentimes when I listen to JP, a lot is figuring out the concept in highly conceptual ways, and can oftentimes be not everyday language. And I do my best to bring things down to earth, not because people ain't that smart, but even I want to be talked to in a way that makes sense, to be able to explain an idea in the most universal way possible. So essentially what I got out of that is there's this idea that, okay, if we are, let's say, successful as a society because we have upheld certain values, certain morals. I mean, counter to a lot of this leftist ideology, Western civilization didn't get here because it colonized and because it enslaved, and other peoples because they were colonized and enslaved. That is a myth, or at least majoritively so. It's complex, but most of that is actually myth. The United States, for example, the northern part of the United States produced upwards to 80% of our actual wealth. This is during the times of slavery, right? And then obviously right outside of slavery. So the agricultural South was producing, a good amount of wealth. And then, again, it was agricultural, but the Industrial Revolution took place in the northern regions. Not to say Southerners didn't create things and, inventions, etc. There were many Southerners who did, but again, I'm drawing this out to kind of paint a picture to say a lot of what was going on in the free part, or the free non-slave areas of America, was producing. So that kind of takes away from this narrative, or at least chips away at this narrative that it is slavery that led to that. If it wasn't for slaves, America wouldn't be what it was. So therefore, give us what is ours, right? A lot of this was built outside of the context of slavery. Most of our economy as we know it was not built on the back of slaves. I'm sorry to announce that to whoever is listening, but once you actually get into the facts, once you get into the historic context and not this make-believe fantasy of the white liberal, then it just all kind of falls apart. So you have created this, because of your values of work ethic and integrity and families that are together, and all these things contribute to a successful society, a successful, global national community, right? Your country starts to prosper. And so, others see your success and they want to be a part of that success. And so they believe, okay, we want to be a part of that success. We're struggling. Maybe if we came over there, we'd be successful. Now, here's the thing. That is a possibility. Like, you can have people, just as we do have people outside of the United States going to the States. I'm an example of that, right? Born overseas in Zimbabwe, raised between Zimbabwe and South Africa, moved to the United States around 9 to 10 years old, maybe even 10 to 11, and got a green card, went through 10 years of naturalization. But in all of that, we held Western values. We already had the Judeo-Christian values implanted thanks to my pops. We already had, certain means of work ethic and entrepreneurship and contributing to the society as opposed to being a burden on the society, etc. Right? Cleanliness and manners and things of that nature. Again, I'm not saying that these, can't be aspired to in non-Western places, but just look at the conditions around the world and you'll see how culture has impacted. So you bring the person who has not yet, use a real life example. I've, done a bit of due diligence as far as travel, and I'll be doing a lot more travel as soon as I get the opportunity to do so. A lot more travel for the sake of what we do here. But, visiting Europe, let's say, and you see certain communities or certain groups of people who came into Europe, migrated, whether it was illegally, or, there's a history there, whatever it may be, that never quite integrated socially. They never picked up the same social customs. And when you go into their environments, what you will notice is, let's say, dirtier neighborhoods. And I'm not just saying black people. You have North Africans, you have Arabs, etc., even East Europeans. And you go into some of these neighborhoods and you see the exact same conditions of like black ghettos in America. And so, it's like, okay, is it because of their skin color? It's not skin color. You can only land on culture, right? The things that they value and don't value, what they teach in the household and what they don't. It's as simple as that. What is promoted and what is taboo, or, what is discredited or not allowed, or whatever it may be. And that's going to be the incentive for how the people act, how they show up, the things they do and don't do. And so, you have a welfare system overburdened by these individuals. You have neighborhoods that are trashed. You have criminality and things of that nature that may take place. That is a non-assimilation into an environment that does not uphold those values. I know that's a real long-winded way of basically saying some people just don't fit in. And until they choose to be like the place that they are, being absorbed into, it never will work. And now we have a push coming from anybody, especially the white European, historically Western liberal, right? They took that word too. Sorry to the real liberals out there from the 1800s, but you have these people who are pushing this idea that no, we need to accept every culture. We need to have multitude of cultures except for Western culture, because that's the bane of our existence as humans. It's the worst thing. It created all these evils. Again, that's a lie. But secondly, it's like, okay, so you're going to eradicate the very thing that is the reason why there's been success. You get rid of the golden goose that lays the golden eggs, and then all you got left is, you just got, I guess, non-golden gooses, right? Laying regular ass eggs. And then you get mad as a regular ass goose that, well, there's no golden goose anymore. Where are golden eggs? You got rid of it because you believed the lie that it was about just, every goose is supposed to be included in the mix here. Every single type of goose. No, we want geese that are eventually going to lay golden eggs. That's what makes this thing work. So, yeah, I definitely didn't think geese were going to make it into this one, but here we are. Year of our Lord 2025.
And so why do you think there's something to that, right? Because I would say you could make a case, although it's not obvious, that people who are in comparative poverty are perhaps more likely to turn to conflict, although I don't think the relationship is one-to-one. What do you think is wrong with that theory of peace bequeathed by economic opportunity, and why?
Well, let me put it in biological terms. There are two basic reasons for any creature, but especially humans, to collaborate. The most primary reason is genetic relatedness. The second reason is the value that is created through reciprocity. And if you'll allow me to paint with a broad brush, what we call the West, I believe, is most fundamentally about the agreement to put aside our lineages and collaborate because there's wealth to be produced. And this notion, which, it has its roots in antiquity, but I believe that this was accidentally invented in its current form by the American founding fathers. That in essence, in order to confederate the colony.
Shout out to the founding fathers, by the way. Shout out to y'all need more respect on y'all names. They're tearing down your statues. Shout out to Jefferson, Washington, Hancock, Franklin, Locke. Shout out to y'all.
They built a set of rules that didn't put anybody at particular advantage. Now, they did it imperfectly. There's obviously some glaring defects in our founding documents and things, but in general, they solved this tremendous problem. And over the course of the next couple hundred years, that system was so unbelievably productive by putting the people who were in the best position to collaborate into contact and facilitating putting their racial differences aside. We became a powerhouse. And so the American experiment became contagious because once people saw how dynamic it was and what a high price they had been paying for putting their genetic relatedness first, everybody wanted to join it. So that is...
And that's the argument against the real racists, black and white and everything in between. You know, some of them started becoming, parts of my audience because I would speak on black culture, thinking I was talking to, they thought that we were having two very different conversations. They thought we were having the same conversation, but it was two very different conversations. I was having a conversation of this can be improved, and they were having a conversation of, yeah, IQ, low, people, dumb, race. No. I was actually having the conversation of you have the ability to improve your conditions if you make different decisions and stop doing certain things, stop certain behaviors, and you will get certain outcomes or different outcomes. So this is such a powerful, angle. I've never necessarily gotten into this specific, realm of it, which is, we were willing to put aside genetic differences, as he says, tribalism and things of that nature. You could have Coca-Cola and Pepsi come together and partner. You have an Indian man and a Pakistani man come together for the sake of doing business, right? For the sake of profiting themselves, but it also profits, hopefully, the society based upon the product. Like, you may not like Bezos. You may think that he's a rich, greedy, whatever, SOB, etc. Okay, cool. Yeah, but you still buy his product or you still use his services. You pay for his services willfully. Nobody's ever put anything to your head. You willfully purchase. And he and other, men and women came together and created that business. Collaboration is everything in the Western world. My dad always used to try to get that across to me and still does to this day. When we come together in collaboration as opposed to just competing, trying to take each other out, we do so much better. I don't view anybody on this platform as my competition. I'm encouraged. I'm motivated. I might see somebody and be like, wow, look at the things they're doing. Even the youngsters doing the streaming. I may not like some of it. I may think some of it is kind of degenerate, but as far as their mentality, their work ethic and things of that nature, I'm inspired by it. And I want to come together and collaborate. And I'm actually, following up on that word by having more people featured on the channel and things of that nature whose stories I believe should be highlighted, who have certain insights and things of that nature that can give us, full perspective and, who we can collaborate with. Simple as that. So I will let you guys watch the rest of the video on your own time because, again, it is a lengthy video, but that just kind of gave me a framework for this conversation. It's always helpful to have something like that, especially when you're going off the top. I don't write scripts and things of that nature. Don't think there's anything wrong with that. At least as long as you're not using robots to write your stuff, right? Then sure, go ahead, knock yourself out. But, I tend to just go off the cuff, off the riff, whatever's top of mind, even sometimes at that moment. Sometimes I have subjects and videos lined up, but other times I may just have some sporadic I need to get off my chest at that moment. So when you do that, it's nice to have a framework. But yeah, let's continue to stand up for Western values. Let's not be afraid to be capitalists, unapologetic capitalists. This one's going to terrify some folks out there. That face right there. Yep. You can learn from everything and everyone. Stop taking, people who have not educated themselves or don't even know's advice about things they don't know. That's what I've realized, right? Stop listening to people who don't actually care to research in the first place or to get to understand something. And so I'm also going to, be doing my best to sort of delve more into those voices, the experts and the people who are, on the field, or just everyday people who are having these real life experiences. Till the next time, peace. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there, or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace. Aquarius. Where? I've been up for hours, I've been up for days, staring at the ceiling, I've been counting strays, I've been in my feelings, I've been out of mind, I've been getting visions of the other kind, I've been up for weeks, I'm in the counting blessings over counting sheep. I can never be the type to limit when it comes to me. I used to be the pleaser for the people, I ain't